Hey guys, John here from Sun & Drive Studio. I hope you're all doing well and welcome back to the channel once again. And welcome to another episode of Tonexperiments. Tonexperiments is all about the Tonex platform by IK Multimedia, of course, the revolutionary app and plugin, and now also the pedal that lets you model amplifiers and pedals into the digital realm. And IK Multimedia recently released the Tonex pedal, which I have over here, this wonderful unit. And I did a video on this pedal, a review and a demo, which you can check out up here or down here if you're interested. But yeah, it's a great pedal and I've been really enjoying it. And later in this video, I'm going to explain how I have this pedal set up in my recording setup. But if you've gotten a pedal for yourself, let me know in the comments down below how you are using it and how you have it set up. Are you using it for recording like me or for playing on stage perhaps? And if so, are you using tone models that you've made of your own amplifiers or ones that you've downloaded? Let me know. Just as in previous episodes of Tonexperiments, we're going to compare the sound of a tube amplifier versus a tone model of that amplifier that I made with Tonex. And by the way, you can find links to those previous episodes in the comments down below, and they also include free tone models. Now, we did a lot of high gain tones so far in the series, so I wanted to try something different for this video, something a bit more crunchy and more classic and a bit more low gain, so kind of a mid-gain crunch tone. And for that, I'm going to use my Marshall JCM800 Studio, the SC20H, an excellent sounding amplifier. And we're going to do that first, and then later in the video, I'm going to talk about my recording setup, as I just explained, with my Fractal Audio XFX3. But I'm also going to talk about my Line 6 Helix setup, which I use for creating the actual tone models. But let's start with a comparison first. So just as with the previous episodes, we're going to start with a blind test comparison to see if you guys can hear which one is the real amplifier and which one is the Tonex tone model. I'm going to explain the entire setup in a little bit, but as far as the Marshall goes, I have it set up with the 3-band EQ all set to 6, so the famous 666 settings. Presence is set to about 11 o'clock, the master volume is set to about 10 o'clock, and the pre-gain is set to about 3 o'clock. And I am using the high sensitivity input for that nice crunch. And the riffs that you're about to hear were recorded with my old Gibson Les Paul Classic with the Classic 57 pickups in it. And the tone model that I made and that you'll hear is basically a direct capture. So it's just the amplifier with a load. And then I'm using OwnHammer impulse responses for both the tones, so both for the real amplifier and the Tonex tone model. And the IR that I'm using for this one is the mid-gain mic mix from the 412 ORNG Essentials package, which is based on a 4x12 ORNG cabinet with V30s. Okay, let's check it out. And after you've heard this comparison, let me know in the comments down below what your thoughts are. Which one is the real amplifier and which one is the Tonex platform? Here we go. Alright, so my thoughts are that it's basically impossible to hear which one is the real amplifier and which one is the Tonex model. It's that close. Tonex does an amazing job with high gain tones, as we heard, but also with these mid-gain crunch tones, it's just impossible to hear which one is which. So again, before we move on, be sure to drop your guess in the comments down below, and don't check out the results before you drop that guess. And then afterwards, we'll see how close you all were. It should be interesting. Okay, now I'm going to reveal which one is which with an isolated comparison, so with just the guitars. Here we go. So A was the Tonex tone model and B was the real Marshall amplifier. Impressive, right? Absolutely nuts. Oh, and by the way, you can download this tone model for free on ToneNet. Just look for SDS JCM800 and you should find it. And of course, once you've tried it, let me know in the comments down below what you thought of the sound. And if you don't like the sound, you basically don't like the sound of this amplifier. It's that simple. So for these clips, I used my Line 6 Helix rack as the audio interface. And I've also been using the Helix to create my captures these past weeks, with great results, by the way. And I know a lot of you also own a Helix, so I thought it might be useful if I walk you guys through my setup and how I have everything set up to create my captures. It's not super hard and not super complicated, but the cool thing about this setup is that I can monitor everything through an impulse response. So I can capture the direct sounds of the amplifiers and monitor everything through an IR so that it doesn't capture the actual IR, but so that I can hear it in a nice way. So not the pure sound of the amplifier, which sounds pretty harsh and pretty bad always. So it's nice to be able to put all of those sounds through an impulse response. And when I'm creating my captures, I have the sample rate on my Helix set to 44.1 kilohertz, but it should also work with different sample rates. First, let's take a look at my Line 6 Helix preset. We are starting the chain with the USB 3/4 for the input. This allows me to send the audio from the Tonex app into the preset on the Line 6 Helix. And then we have a volume block. This allows me to raise or attenuate the level going into the effects loop in which we have the amplifier and the load box set up. I have raised the level a little bit to 3.6 decibels, which I'm basically doing to compensate for the slight level loss that tends to happen with the reamp box, and in my case I'm using the Tonex capture box by IK Multimedia. Then we have effects loop 1, and the return level can be used to control the level of the amp and the load box. Basically lower this if the signal is coming in too hot back into the Tonex app. And in the loop, the signal is going straight into the Tonex capture box. And it's amazing how well this thing has kept my signal clean. There's no noise, no hiss, no ground loops, nothing of that. So this has been a game changer for me for my Tonex setup. I wouldn't be able to do this anymore without this capture box because it has made my workflow that much easier for creating the captures. But I wouldn't say it's super essential. You can make captures without this thing, but in my case, it has really helped me out. From the capture box, the signal is going into the front of the amplifier, and the amplifier is being fed into one of my reactive loads, and then that signal is being fed back into the return of the effects loop of the Helix preset. Then the signal is going into the USB 5/6 outputs, so back into the computer and back into the Tonex app. And then we have another chain set up in the bottom, and that starts with the USB 7/8 inputs. Then an IR block to monitor through with an OwnHammer IR setup. And finally the multi-out, which is going into my mixer and then into my speakers. So the bottom chain is just for monitoring through. Nothing in the bottom chain is being captured by the Tonex app. All of that happens just in the top chain, basically. It's super handy. I love it. Now let's take a look at how I have the signal flow set up in the Tonex app. For the monitor outputs, I'm using 7 and 8. So that's leading into the bottom row with the IR that I just showed you. So the entire sound of the plugin is basically going through that bottom row. Input 7 is the clean DI guitar signal. Output 3 is the effects loop send. And input 5 is the effects loop return. And that's it. And as you heard in the comparison, this setup allows me to create some amazingly accurate tone models. So as I said before, for playing and recording guitar, I have the Tonex pedal hooked up through my XFX3. I use my XFX3 often for recording my guitar tracks and for laying down my DI tracks. It allows me to basically record some processed guitar tracks alongside a clean DI track, and the signals are always very nice. So this setup basically allows me to monitor and play through the Tonex pedal while also recording the clean DI tracks. So the Tonex pedal is basically hooked up in a loop of the XFX, and let me show you the XFX preset first. So we have input 1, this is where the guitar enters the signal going to output 4. And output 4 is going into the Tonex pedal with a humbuster cable for keeping the signal clean as well. And the pedal is then going back into input 4 of the XFX, so that's the loop. Then we have a noise gate set up, and then the IR block. The IR block in the Fractal allows me to load over 2000 IRs, which is great. I'm a huge IR lover and I love my OwnHammer impulse responses, so that's very cool. And then after the cap block, we're going out of output 1, which is my basic main output going into my mixer and then into my monitors. So again, when I record my guitars, I play through the Tonex pedal and record that alongside the clean DI tracks for reamping. And one cool additional touch that I've added is that I'm controlling the Tonex pedal via MIDI with my XFX. This gives me a lot of control and makes browsing sounds very easy. So when I change the presets and the scenes on the XFX3, the presets are also automatically changed on the Tonex pedal via MIDI. And I've basically made presets for all my amplifiers on the XFX with various scenes that correspond to the amp channels. So for my Wong's HD15 captures, for example, I've got one preset and then 3 scenes. We've got a scene for a lead channel, a scene for the crunch channel, and a scene for the clean channel. And when I change the scenes, the presets on the Tonex automatically change as well, which is very cool. And I'm doing all of that with the MIDI block in the XFX preset, so that's all very easy and simple. Whew, so that's the setup. I hope this was useful for you guys, or maybe interesting to see how I have it all hooked up. It could be very different for you guys, and I'd be very interested in knowing how you guys are using the Tonex app and also the Tonex pedal and how you have it hooked up and how you're using it. Definitely let me know in the comments down below. And of course, if you have any questions on my setup, let me know in the comments down below as well. And of course, also let me know what you thought of my free tone model. That's all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please consider hitting the like and subscribe buttons down below, as that really helps the channel out. I'd hugely appreciate that. And you can also follow Sonic Drive Studio on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thank you guys so much, and I hope to see you soon. Cheers!